everybody, welcome to Full Throttle TV. I'm your host, Michael, and my co-host, as always,
Ronaldo.
Oh man, before I get into the episode, this week we're discussing Magnum P.I, Simon and Simon, and Matt Houston. And I have to say, could you see me rocking out to that theme song?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
that is not the original theme song of Magnum P.I. The original one was kind of like a Dallas. It felt more soap opera-y, you know.
Is that a word? Opera-y?
Opera-y. I'm making up words. I got the right to do that as an American man.
That works.
Yeah, it's an interesting tune. It's not that bad, but it's that second one that you just like, yeah. It's awesome. And a few things change. The opening does change, not just the theme, but like the way they set it up. But in general, the show kind of stayed the same. But not, you know how a lot of TV shows back then, it was just the same old every single week. And there was no real progression. Magnum P.I. didn't really have that. It's one of those shows you can tell as you go through the seasons, oh, the characters have changed and, you know, like little relationship tweaks here and there. I hate shows where you could watch it in season 6 and then go and watch an episode from season 2 and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It means there's no progression whatsoever.
I don't know though. I enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed it throughout the whole of the series. So they must have done something right, in my opinion. But
no, I was saying Magnum P.I. did get it right. There's some shows I swear to you that were on forever, never. Like what Law and Order was on for 20 years, and I honestly, if it wasn't for the cast change, I wouldn't know. Nothing ever changes. It's the same thing every day. You never care about the characters. It's just procedure.
Gotcha.
I like Dukes of Hazzard, but there's a lot of Dukes of Hazzard seasons where it doesn't really progress. The characters is just the adventure of the week kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the character changes on that show kind of let me go away.
They completely changed the characters. We're not saying the character is evolved at all. It's like, now you guys are out. I'm not going to pay you anymore. And then we're like, what were their names? What were the two cousins that came in?
Vance and Coy.
Yeah. Poor guys. They'll never be remembered for anything else other than the fact that they that's the point when the show kind of
that sucks.
Magnum P.I. It was on of these shows that we discuss. Most of them only run for 3 or 4 seasons. A few of them only last 1 season. This is probably the granddaddy of them all. This was on for 8 seasons. Actually, I think Simon and Simon was on for 8 seasons as well. But usually shows back then, they kind of wore their welcome out pretty fast if you didn't have a really strong plot. If you're just about cars or a certain gimmick, people burned out pretty fast.
Right. I think Magnum had that whole Vietnam vet thing going on that I think helped out quite a bit as far as his fan base.
Yeah. I think my favorite episode is... I'm going to forget the title of it. Do you remember The Rain, or did you see The Rain? It's the movie. It's like a 2-hour episode at the beginning of season 3 where it's completely bounces between his time as a POW and then now, and the guy who held them captive is hunting, trying to get his revenge. It's a tough episode.
Yeah, I started watching. I watched the beginning of every season. That's all I was able to get undone. And I did not finish the 3rd one, but I know what you're talking about. But it seems to me like that's how they brought in every season. It seemed like.
Yeah, and there was death. There was actually death and consequences. It was it's an adventure detective show, but I think it was part of the new class of shows where it was a little more realistic and a little darker, deeper plots. Instead of, well, this one's over, let's just basically erase that history and start over again the next episode. There's real consequences in the show, and there are times when it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Now, if you have never seen the show, these are going to be some spoilers here, but I don't think you made it this far, but at the end of season 7, sorry, I think it's at the beginning of season... Crap, I'm screwing it up. I saw so many episodes right in a row. I have to tell you, I marathon watched this. So it's a little hard for me. I did jump a few episodes, but there's an episode where his ex-wife and his daughter are blown up, and you could not believe it. And not only that, but Magnum also dies at the end of season 7. He goes to heaven.
And you said there were 8 seasons?
Yeah, there's 8 seasons. Okay, so the series is supposed to end on season 7. He's shot. He goes to heaven. They keep calling his name for him to come back. and he realizes that he's lost everything that matters to him, and he's at peace. So he goes to heaven, and that's it. And you're like, holy crap! And then I guess the fans were so upset because there's a lot of love for Magnum and Tom Selleck, period, that he said, you know what? Let's go back and find a way to make it possible for my character to live and end the season right. And it's just a beautiful moment. It's one of the few times where a show makes a decision that the fans aren't happy with and fix it without destroying the continuity.
Now, was there... Speaking of plot twists and things like that, I did not see the end. I vaguely recall, and I could be completely off base on this, but wasn't Robin Masters, or do I not want to throw a spoiler in there?
No, it's fine. I already did.
Is Higgins Robin?
Okay, so here's the thing. Higgins admits in the very last episode that he is Robin Masters. He finally gives it up because Thomas quit. Wait, I say Tom Selleck. I'm sorry, Magnum quit. Wait, it is Thomas Magnum. Sorry.
It is Thomas,
yeah, sorry. He quits, and he goes, before I leave, you got to tell me, man, I don't work for you anymore. You just tell me, who is Robin Masters? Are you Robin Masters? And he says, yes. But then, in the last minute of the very last episode, he is at Rick's wedding, and he's standing there waiting for the bride to show up, and Higgins turns to him and he goes, Magnum? And he goes, yes. You remember the time that I told you that I was Robin Masters? And he goes, well, yeah, you just told me. And he goes, I lied.
Nice. Okay.
He lied to him just to mess with him.
I love Higgins.
But here's the truth about Robin Masters is for the first couple seasons, Orson Welles was supposed to be Robin Masters. He voiced him, and like on phone calls or whatnot, and he was supposed to show up in like season 3 or 4, and then he passed away, so it never happened. So that's when they started just balancing the idea of, well, who is Robin Masters, and then kind of like teasing you the whole way.
Right.
It's like taking a bad situation and spinning it into something that's just so wonderful.
Yeah, I like the fact that they actually didn't reveal him, but still. The reason I was asking is when I was watching, obviously receiving calls from Robin, Higgins receiving calls from Robin. I'm like, I thought he was Robin.
Yeah.
See,
I'd only seen maybe a couple dozen episodes. Like, they used to show it when I was a kid in the afternoons, like at 3 o'clock. And my mom's a huge fan. She's seen every single episode. And she was like, you gotta see this show. It was a little mature for me. I wasn't really prepared for, like, the sophisticated characters. And so, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't stick with it. I'm sure there were some cartoons that I would rather watch. And watching it now, I'm just like, this is right in my wheelhouse. Just now, I'm starting to discover the more mature shows from our childhood, like Hill Street Blues, Miami Vice, and stuff like that. Trying to go back and like, okay, so a lot of the stuff in the 70s and 80s was fluff, you know. And but there's a handful of gems in there that really need to be appreciated.
Definitely.
And there's a lot of these kind of like detective shows at this time period. But what makes this show so wonderful is the camaraderie between the 4 guys. TC. I actually like TC a little bit more than Magnum, which sounds crazy, but he's such a fun character. He's always so put upon. He's like, oh, what now?
And who would want to be TC?
Yeah, and there's a lot of his family stuff in there. They talk about his son, his marriage, and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool that he was kind of like the family man, while everybody else was kind of like single. I still don't understand what was going on with Higgins. There was an episode where he was going to marry some fancy British lady just for the status, you know, the class status of it all, not realizing the person who loved him was right in front of his face, and he blew that up so bad.
Oh yeah, it's like the story of, that's the oldest story anyway. You never see what's right in front of you.
Yeah. So I didn't know this. I knew that Magnum P.I. and Simon & Simon existed in the same universe because they had crossover episodes, but I didn't know that there was a crossover with Murder, She Wrote.
I think I remember that crossover, but I did not know they did Simon & Simon. I think it's the opening of season 2 is when they visit each other. Like, he comes to LA and then they go to Hawaii.
And there was also a planned, I kid you not, there was a planned spin-off or crossover with Equalizer and Quantum Leap.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Right before Quantum Leap got canceled, I think, if I remember correctly, the last season is not a full season. They had a couple episodes left over they were going to do, but they cut the order. And they were going to end season 5 with him jumping into Magnum's body. So therefore, if you think about it, okay, so you got Magnum, Simon & Simon, Murder, She Wrote, and then those two shows, they would have had the Avengers of Detectives.
No kidding.
And there's also a very short-lived TV show called Whiz Kids with Matthew Lobordeaux. You know, he was Albert on Little House on the Prairie.
Yes.
Did you ever see that show, Whiz Kids?
I did see it. I don't remember anything about it. I just remember Albert was in it, and that's it.
Yeah, I think there's some episodes on YouTube, but it's basically like 4 kids who solve mysteries using technology. And,
right.
And that means they were also part of the universe. This is crazy because besides like Happy Days, there was really no universes like tied shows. So this is actually quite unique.
I forgot about Happy Days.
Yeah, Happy Days has a ton of spin-offs.
Yeah. Well, Laverne and Shirley was there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, Joni Loves Chachi, Loves Chachi. I feel like there's another one in there somewhere, but and then of course there's Archie Bunker. I think they had a couple spin-offs with Maude and Jeffersons, I believe, are from that show.
Yeah. Well, that would have been cool to see. Quantum Leap, I could see the other ones being crossed over, but Quantum Leap would have just really threw it out there.
Yeah, it would have been weird because it's not part of the detective world. But you know, at first when I heard about the idea that they were going to jump into shows and stuff like that, right at the end when the ratings were starting to drop, and I was like, so is he jumping into the TV show? Does he find a way into actual film and video? But no, the creator of Magnum P.I, or the co-creator of Magnum P.I, is also the creator of Airwolf and Quantum Leap, and then Jag.
Love Jag.
Oh, and NCIS. And then NCIS. Well, that guy did. Donald Belisario does a lot of shows.
Oh, yeah. A lot of great shows, honestly.
You know what's funny is, you know, there was a couple years where Tom Selleck seemed bitter that he lost Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, he was tied to the contract for Magnum P.I. And so he missed out on Raiders of the Lost Ark. But the weird thing is, I still never understood, why is it they couldn't wait? You know, they did the Magnum P.I. movie first, and then the series launched later. Why couldn't they have waited 4 more months? Do you realize how huge? I mean, Magnum P.I. was already a big hit, but it would have been like #1, the hottest thing on the planet, if he had done Raiders of the Lost Ark between them.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure he would have done a fantastic job. But I don't know. I think they had the right guy for that one.
I can't argue with that, but I always thought that was weird. It's like, why didn't you just let him go for a couple more months? Duh.
I've seen him in, what was it? Obviously, he's done a couple westerns, but one movie that stands out, when I was driving truck, every truck stop sells these cheap old DVDs in these thin cases, and one of them was called Concrete Cowboy.
Oh, my God. Have you seen that?
I own it.
You do? It's great, isn't it?
It was absolutely hilarious. But,
yeah, for listeners who don't know, this is a pilot movie with Tom Selleck. By the way, Tom Selleck was cursed. He was like in a crap ton of pilots that never took off. He did it with Jerry Reed. And the pilot
and they worked awesome together.
and the pilot did well, but they saw potential in Tom Selleck having a different show. And Jerry Reed was busy, I think, with Smokey and the Bandit 2, so they couldn't do it immediately. So by the time Concrete Cowboys came around to a series, they had to recast Tom Selleck. It only lasted like 6 episodes, but the show's decent. It's very, very hard to find, but that first movie's great. I love Jerry Reed too.
Oh yeah.
Of his movies, of the movies that Tom Selleck did, which is your favorite?
I can't remember what it's called. The Australian, where he's in Australia.
Quigley Down Under. That's probably
Quigley
his best.
Down Under.
I have a soft spot for Runaway, the one he did where he fights Gene Simmons and has all those little robot spiders.
I've not seen that one.
What? Oh, Michael Crichton. Okay, Michael Crichton, the creator of Jurassic Park, was a director for a while. He did Westworld and about like 5 other movies. He did Runaway, And basically, it's filmed in 1984, but it's set like 10, 15 years later, where robots are more of a commonplace thing. Like people have robots in their house that do like just generic errands. And Tom Selleck's job is he's a specialist in LA where if anything goes wrong with robots, like there's a crime committed by a robot, he's the one that specializes in that. And they have this opening scene where a robot discovers a gun and doesn't really understand what it does and how it does things or whatever, and it just starts opening fire. So he has to go in this special outfit that the robot can't see his body heat. And it's stuff like that. But it turns out a lot of these robots are being programmed by Gene Simmons, who's like a gun-for-hire terrorist kind of thing, who is wiping out a bunch of people associated with this corporation by using the robots. And so there's normal everyday robots, and he has like these little spiders that inject acid and then explode. And then he has this gun that has bullets that track your body heat, your body signature, and it'll take you out. I mean, you could be in a crowd of 20 people, and you just fire a bullet, and it'll go through those 20 people and hit the right target. And Tom Selleck is so great in the movie. The movie's it's dated a little bit because obviously the special effects are kind of meh, but that's just the way movies are. But he is absolutely top notch in that role.
I'm looking at the case of this one right now, and looking at the case, I think I may have seen it, but you can take that with a grain of salt because anything in the 80s came out with the case looking the exact same way.
Yeah, and it was a bomb. He actually stopped making movies for 3 years until 3 Men and a Baby came along because Runaway bombed so badly. But here's the reason. You put a lower budget sci-fi movie, I think it cost like $12 million, up against Star Trek 3, Terminator, and I think it was Starman. You know how like that? And I think it was like there's a whole bunch of stuff that Christmas that it went up against, and it just got murdered.
Oh, bad timing.
Yeah. So the cars in Magnum P.I. Hit me.
Hit you.
Well, there's really only one car, but then there's a chopper. A cool chopper.
I'll say there's multiple cars in it, but we're gonna focus on just a few because we only have so much time. So there were 3 cars used throughout the series. First one was a 79 308 GTS Ferrari. Let's see. Yeah, like I said, 3. I lost it. 1981 308 GTSI was prevalent in the second and third seasons. And then from then on, they used the 1984 308 GTS. Let me butcher this Italian word. Quattro Valvole. Something like that. Finished out the series. But unless you're a diehard Magnum fan, you wouldn't know this. There was actually a 4th car, and then it was a different color. But there was an 84 308 as well. This one was green, and it was driven in the episode Summer School in season 6. Driven by Robin's nephew. He's a no good punk dropout nephew. It had a plate number. Okay, so you want an idea how rich this Robin Masters is?
Yeah, I've always been
His
curious.
plate number was Robin 23, which suggests he had at least 23 other vehicles.
Oh my God.
This particular car, the 308, designed by none other than Pininfarino's Leonardo Fioravanti. Did I say that right? Does that sound Italian enough?
Yes.
But his guy is the guy who designed the beast of Italian fury, the Ferrari F40, and this is the car that made me love Ferrari. That was before I really got into Magnum. Then I got, okay, not a big deal. Here's an interesting note on that car, on any of the cars. Tom Selleck is 6'4" tall.
Big man.
What does that mean to you?
Means it's very hard to get in that car.
Exactly.
Cracking your head every episode. Son of a...
8 seasons he had to ride in a car with no padding in the seats. 8 seasons. The seats bolted all the way back, and if you look in the scenes, you'll see that his head's still above the freaking windshield. I would hate to get run under a tree or something anyway. Well, anywho. The cool thing is, this iconic car was a product of fate. You know what they wanted him to drive?
I don't want to know. Is it bad?
The Porsche 928.
Oh.
To me, it's not like the 911. everyone thinks Porsche. You think the 911. The 928 looked more, in my opinion, more well, definitely 80s, but more like the family. Not like you can fit your whole family in it by any means, but anyway, I think they picked the right car. But the only reason they didn't go with the Porsche is because Porsche are a bunch of they're very protective over their property. They would not modify the car so they could get their aerial shots. They needed a wider roof so they could take aerial shots. You know, it's Hawaii. You got to be up in there. Anyway, anywho, that being said, moving on. Of course, there were a lot of awesome cars. Hold on. One interesting note on the 308. They actually drove those cars for a lot of the scenes, and they were actually Ferraris, unlike some other cars.
Oh yeah, because we've had a couple episodes where they're like, oh, well, they're just kit cars.
Yep, except for one. This isn't the exception to the rule, but there were a lot of shots where they shot with the actual Ferrari, and Ferrari actually let them do it, which is awesome. But for the really aggressive shots, they used what? Let me tell you. They had to use a kit car. Use a Ferrari, you're going to be like, this is too expensive. Anyway, this was the particular kit car that made me want this particular car growing up.
Yeah.
It was a Pontiac Fiero.
Oh my God, I remember those.
It's a fun little death trap, is what it was.
Oh my God, I remember when we had a friend that got one, and he thought it was the greatest thing ever, but then you sat and you're like, what died in here? This is like a destroyed, ugly mess. Like, yeah, I got it for a couple $100. Like, it looks like it cost a couple $100. Ugh.
Somebody probably did die.
Yeah.
Just bang it out here and there would be good. Okay, so of course there's a lot of great cars, shots with the Ferrari, but we can't forget TC.
Oh, that chopper! The car was awesome, but I was a huge fan of helicopters as a kid. A lot of you can see 'cause I'm obsessed with Airwolf, but that helicopter is so awesome.
That helicopter was a Hughes 500D, the most popular, agile, reliable chopper of the time. It was based off of a military chopper, which is he flew in the military in Vietnam, right? Yeah, right. So he was obviously, I don't think he flew those, but and then of course, actually one note on that chopper. Do you think that paint job do you think he chose that paint job for his business?
I thought so.
I thought so too. That was actually a factory option.
What? Oh, that's so awesome.
That is the epitome of the 70s and 80s, I tell you right there.
God. That's killer.
We can't get away from Magnum P.I. and TC without mentioning, or, what do you call the honorable mention?
Yeah.
Who didn't want one of these growing up, especially if you're in college and into things that were questionable?
A mustache?
I had one of those, and I had it in junior high.
Do you remember when he took it off? He did a movie in the early 90s. There's Mr. Baseball, which is like an awesome movie, but he did one called Folks, where he basically is taking care of his dad, Don Amici, and for some reason he decided to get rid of his mustache and buzz his hair. And you look at the cover, you're like, who is that? I have no idea who that is. That movie made nothing. That made like $1.50, and it's because he took all the facial hair off. What was he thinking?
What?
He has a face for facial. I mean, some people are just weird without facial hair. You just you gotta have it.
Yep. I'll tell you, I'm starting to grow. Yeah, pun intended. It's starting to grow on me. Whenever I try to take it off, I feel like I don't feel right anymore.
Yeah, I tried shaving. I was like, who are you, baby face? So I interrupted you. What did everybody want?
You're fine. Okay, I don't have much on this one because if anybody who's a car nut knows enough about these that I don't need to say anything more. 1983 Volkswagen Vanagon. The microbus.
The Vanagon?
Vanagon, did I say that wrong?
No, I always say Vanagon. I'm an idiot.
Volkswagen. Vanagon. That works. Anyway, that's all I have on those. So.
Well, Rick drove that Datsun. I always thought that was pretty cool. They didn't show his car off that much. Nissan something. Nissan 130?
He had a Mercedes.
What's that?
That's what I remember. But yeah, he did have that other thing.
Oh, you know what? That's right. That's in the first season or two. Mercedes came in like later in the show.
Okay.
Yeah, he was kind of underutilized character. I never really knew what to do with Rick. Rick always seemed to be kind of like, well, we got to have somebody to, move the plot along, and he always seemed to show up. He's an okay character, but I always thought he got kind of shafted.
Yeah. Seemed kind of shady.
Yeah, there's times it might be the fact that he owned that club. They always seemed like he seemed like the guy. Like Huggy Bear and Starsky and Hutch. He was always like the guy who had the information, the connection to the guys who were kind of sketchy. He always seemed to be that guy.
Is he mob? We don't know.
I just found this out. I was looking at some of the cast members. Okay, so Frank Sinatra is probably the most famous guest they ever had on that show because he came out of retirement to do an episode. I actually think that episode's severely overrated. But just under that, I noticed that it says Tom Selleck. Ooh, this might be why he's bitter and pissed. There was a writer's strike that delayed the shooting of Magnum P.I. So he actually had time to be in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had 9 whole months.
Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, it's got a bite, man.
Considering what it's gone on to be, well, he's held his own. So
yeah,
he's
had quite a bit of success. So it's great. And are you watching Blue Bloods at all?
No, I've been wanting. It's on my list to watch.
Yeah, it's in my queue, and I never get around to watching it.
Yeah.
We will be revisiting Tom Selleck later in the series. I think a couple months from now, I think I have Vegas with Robert Urich, and then Las Vegas, which he was in the last season of.
Okay.
Just to give people a teaser what's coming up. All right, so our next show is going to be Simon and Simon. We're going to pause for a second here. That's another great one. Simon and Simon. That's a rockin' tune. It starts with a slide guitar, and then it just like kicks into like a Huey Lewis, like the way it was like a bar band kind of thing. Bring the saxophone. Only in the 80s did you see the saxophone just like everywhere.
Epic sax guy.
Saxophone got much respect. Only in like Chicago stuff do you see it now. It's like, oh, they're going to Chicago, and they play like the saxophone for a second or whatever. Just make sure you understand it's Chicago.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Tim Kohler played on the streets of Huntington.
Yeah, what recently?
Remember the movie the commercial we did? And,
oh my God, I forgot about that. We shot that in the alley.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish we had that on video still.
Why did we do that?
It was for my radio class.
Oh, okay.
I you had a class, you could be our camera guy.
That's right. I forgot about that. Thanks. When I get a guitar, this is probably going to be one of the first things I learn is that slide guitar. I want to do that in the theme from Houston Nights. They're so bluesy and fun.
Yeah.
This is another show where the original theme song was changed. The first season, the ratings stunk. They were not doing very well. It was on the verge of cancellation. And the guys who created it said, hey, let's retool the show. Let's make it a little more action-packed. Let's change the opening and the music, whatever, make more rockin'. And they moved it over with Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. and Simon were almost simultaneous their entire run. It's they just go hand in hand. And plus the fact that they are in the same universe.
The good thing about them is they were both... Okay, both of them were a little okay, maybe not Simon and Simon as much, but Magnum P.I. had all the women and everything in it. So I'm surprised that my mom actually let me watch it.
Which one, Magnum P.I.?
Magnum, yeah.
Well, Simon and Simon, they dated around a lot too. You know, I always thought it was strange that Gerald McCraney is the one who got most of the women, because you kind of look at him and you're thinking, you look like an old dude. I know you're not that old, but I mean, I'm a bald man, so don't freak out, people. I'm not like bashing on bald people, but he was balding fairly early. Plus, he was kind of unkempt. But it was the early 80s, and people seem to be into that kind of stuff. Look at some of the old photos of your parents and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, comb-overs, huge beards, mutton chops, ah!
But Harry and the Henderson.
Well,
anyway,
unless you live in Oregon, where it has never changed. It is actually legally required. The minute you move into Oregon, you have 60 days to get your license changed and to grow a beard. It's true. You have to. And no matter how much it itches, like, I'm an Oregonian! Ah!
I think it's a lot like that in Minnesota. Only you have to pick up that Canadian accent a little bit.
Yeah, well, you have to grow a beard because it's so cold that your face will crack. All right, Simon and Simon.
Let's be on safety.
This one is big on family, which is why I think my parents let me watch it, is because they had really good values. It was like a beach version of Dukes of Hazzard when it comes to family. Like, it wasn't as heavy on the morals because they didn't have I feel like Dukes of Hazzard. What's that?
They didn't have a boss hog.
Yeah, they didn't have a boss hog. It was more of a villain of the week. I will say Simon and Simon, it peaked very early, which is the bummer part. For me, I think seasons 2 and 3 are the best, and after that it gets kind of routine. Whereas Magnum, every single season just kept building and building and building. I know that ratings started to dip, but did you know that the very last episode of Magnum is like in the top 5 most watched TV shows ever? Like that episode is up there almost with MASH and Seinfeld. It's crazy.
Oh, sorry. I did know that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Which is kind of a bummer. I think, if I remember correctly, Simon and Simon kind of petered out. I think they stuck around a little bit longer than Magnum, and then when Magnum was gone, that nobody really cared anymore. I think they were only watching Simon and Simon because it's just like routine. You know how you just kind of get used to watching one show after another? You're just like, well, it's on. I've been watching this for the last 6 seasons. Why not continue? And I, in fact, don't think they even ended the series. There was 2 or 3 episodes not aired, and then they just aired them in syndication. I could be wrong about that one.
That's always a bummer. When they can't wrap things up, at least.
Yeah, I hate, especially when there's so many years worth. You're like, seriously, you're going to insult the fans after this long? There was Drew Carey was on for like 9 years, and the last season where he gets married was not even aired until the middle of the summer, and then they aired like 4 episodes right in a row, 4 episodes right in a row, and then they just dumped it. And it's like, well, wait, we spent all this time with Drew Carey. Why did you do that?
They don't care about us.
Yeah. Only cared about the money.
That's right.
I don't know why. Sorry. My voice cracked there. I almost sound like I went to a Latino accent. I didn't mean that. I meant to do like a big fat cat voice. But then it went... Oh, dude. Speaking of, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able... I have another podcast that Ron sometimes guests on called Back in Tunes. And the discussion came up recently about doing Fat Albert. And I just don't think we can ever do it. Or it's going to be years from now.
Yeah.
Simon and Simon, like earlier we said, is a spinoff, or not spinoff. They were in the same world as Magnum P.I. and Whiz Kids. Other than that, they didn't go really beyond that.
Yeah.
It was kind of Go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't get to see as many as you did, probably. So I don't know exactly if it plateaued or where it plateaued, but.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed 2 and 3, and it also could be the fact that I waited years. They were releasing seasons 1 through 3 really fast, almost on top of each other. Then all of a sudden they stopped because of low sales. And then like 3 years later, Shout Factory started releasing the entire series. So every episode is available. It's just, I don't know, maybe it comes back. Maybe it comes back up. I don't know. But I remember season 4 being kind of a letdown, and I got into season 5 like the first couple episodes, and I was just like, nah, you know what, I'm done.
I said it was nominated 2 times for Primetime Emmys.
Yeah.
Did it win?
I don't know. Where do you see that? I don't.
Oh, I'm on IMDb.
Oh, okay. You have to click on that because usually it tells me in Wikipedia, but I don't see it.
No, I see nominated, 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 no winning.
Oh, okay. Um,
That's a
Go ahead, sorry.
0 wins, 6 nominations. I guess that's good. I mean, it's not like you weren't totally left out of the party. But anyway,
Yeah, for me, I really enjoy the relationship between the brothers. I think I sided more with AJ, because he was kind of like the guy who paid his bills. He was reliable. Yes, he was uptight, but Rick was always just kind of c'est la vie, go with the flow kind of thing. And I was like, I don't understand that. How do you function with a business like this? And of course, many times they struggled. Originally, I wasn't going to include Simon and Simon because I wanted to do an episode where it's more like blue collar kind of detectives, with Rockford Files and stuff like that. But it's just an obvious. Simon and Simon and Magnum P.I. go right together. Magnum lived in luxury, even though he himself wasn't rich. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go with another rich guy. So I will get to that in a sec. But let's finish up Simon and Simon. Now the cool part about Simon and Simon is since they didn't get a finale, like a real finale, and the last 2 episodes were only aired in syndication, they did do a reunion movie, which I thought was pretty solid, and it's called In Trouble Again, but it's very hard to find. It's usually like on one of those sleuth channels, or I found it bootleg. The one thing, I always wonder what happened to Jameson Parker. Gerald McCraney, of course, you still see all the time. He was on Major Dad for years, which is, it's family fun. It's still silly fun. It's
love it.
you can watch with the kids. He was in Jericho, which I absolutely adore. Have you seen that show?
Yes, and I really hate that it ended.
Yeah, well, it's a consolation prize. Basically, it's not good enough in my opinion, but at least the writers continued in the comics. The season 3 and season 4 are told in comic book form, so at least it continues that way. But man, that show is great.
I will have to check that
out. Jameson Parker disappeared though. For the most part, he did what's the movie? Prince of Darkness. John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. It didn't do very well, and he would just do some TV, some small movies here and there, but it doesn't really tell the story here. I read his book. It's called Accidental Cowboy, and it basically tells about his life after he left Hollywood. Now, there's a reason why he left Hollywood. First off, he was getting kind of bored with the same kind of roles. He wasn't getting what he wanted. He was doing he was doing audiobook narration and stuff like that, but he saw the roles were dwindling for quality, which makes no sense because he's a good actor. But it only says it in brief part here on Wikipedia, so I just remember this from the book. He had just come home and his wife was upset. She was crying, and he was like, "What is going on?" And he goes, "The guy down the street was saying all this horrible, lewd, sexual stuff to me." So he turned around and he went down to the neighbor's house to confront him. He knocked on the door and he said, "How dare you?" He goes, "My wife lives at this house. Whatever. You insulted her greatly. Why would you do this? What is wrong with you?" And he opened fire on him and shot Jameson Parker, I think 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy was, while the guy was reloading his gun, Jameson had, with all the power he had left in him, he ran home, bleeding everywhere. And he made it to his porch, and the guy was coming down the street to finish him off, and that's when the cops showed up, and his wife just did what she could to keep the bleeding at bay or whatever until he got to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, so he just said LA is crazy. So he bought a ranch, and I think he lives in like Montana or Oklahoma, and he just lives on his ranch in peace, away from the whole thing. Every once in a blue moon, he'll show up and do like an episode of something, like he did an episode of JAG and I think NCIS, but for the most part, he's done. And
helps make some extra money when he needs it.
Yeah, and he lives in peace, and it's stunning that he survived that, because it says here the guy was convicted of attempted murder, but only 9 years. Someone opens fire on you, I hope they spend the rest of their life in prison.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
I don't know if it killed him. I wonder if that would have been the same way.
Yeah. But thankfully he's still alive and he's enjoying a peaceful life. Sorry to end on a weird end. I didn't want to wrap this Simon and Simon thing up on that sad ending, but it's also the most poignant.
Right.
There is a movie I thought was interesting. that he did with Gerald McCraney. He produced it while doing Simon and Simon. Did it on a very low budget, and it's actually highly entertaining, but very, very hard to find. And I can't seem to see it on. They changed the title on IMDb. It's only on VHS. I think some places might have it streaming, but try to find American Justice, a.k.a. Jackals. Jackals is a stupid name. It doesn't make any sense.
American Justice sounds familiar.
Yeah, it used to air on HBO and Showtime, or one of those two, all the time. That's how I caught it. And he's not the star. There's another guy that was a friend of his that was a good character actor that's a star. But it's basically about, like, on the border of Mexico where there's corrupt cops, and they stumble upon this whole thing about smuggling illegal aliens in. I think there's some drugs involved. But Gerald McCraney is the villain, and it's a really great movie.
I'll have to check it out now.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that got lost in the shuffle. There's still people say arrogant things like, "Oh, all the great movies are already out on DVD or Blu-ray. Well, all that stuff left on VHS is crap." Well, that's just your opinion. One person who may love and cherish this movie, they deserve to see it, somehow survive. And I fear that some of these movies that are only on VHS are going to get lost in time. It's a bummer.
What was it like? I think it was Monty Python, where a lot of their old stuff got erased together. They got taped over for other things, and a lot of that was lost because they didn't, they just didn't care.
Yeah, it was actually Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, my bad.
Yeah,
that was
tons of the. Well, it's kind of a connected story. It's how I discovered this. I think we were talking about this a couple years ago. So BBC, they recycled their tapes, which is dumb. Just go buy more tapes. They weren't that rare. I mean, but they started erasing a lot of the Doctor Who episodes and reusing them. Well, the guys at BBC had heard about this, that they were doing this. They tried to salvage as many tapes as they could, and then they had called the Monty Python guys and told them, hey, they're about to erase your tapes and reuse them for another show. Do you want to come down and get them? So for a while, the Monty Python guys are the only ones that had the original copies of their show. I think at the time it was airing in America, so there were some U.S. copies. But at the same time, you gotta protect, your work. And the same thing goes into these movies that are lost. I think the reason American Justice isn't out on DVD is because Lionsgate owns it. They bought a whole bunch of these small little companies like Vestron. That's why you didn't see Monster Squad on DVD for years. They own Vestron, they own Artisan, Lightning, and Live. A couple others, whatever. They just bought a whole bunch of these small labels. But they don't really have any interest in putting them out. So I don't see the point. Why did you buy them if you're not going to make them available? At least put them streaming.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think that's it for us with What's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wonder what Lionsgate is even thinking, because they have a lot of bombs, like huge bombs, and they need something to hold them up. Well, that's your video catalog. Some companies stay alive for a long time just on that.
Good thing.
Is there anything else you want to say about Simon & Simon?
No, I don't have a whole lot on the cars, except, Rick's truck was pretty interesting, I guess, but it's what you would call the macho power wagon. Everyone's heard of a Dodge power wagon.
Yeah.
Big, beastly vehicle that I don't have much on it other than it was a macho option, which just means I can't find any details on it, to be honest. I've got a couple of opinions, but no actual hard specs. Yeah. All I can say is it's the epitome of a cowboy truck.
I remember. I think I had a Hot Wheel of it. I seem to remember. This is back in the day when Hot Wheels, they did a lot of licensing from these vehicles. Of course, I had like 30 General Lees. I had a Knight Rider. I'm pretty sure I had the helicopter from Magnum P.I. And
I did have that.
I'm pretty sure I had the truck from Simon & Simon. What did his brother drive, though? I always thought it was something. It was like they're the exact opposite. So of course he had to have like a smaller, faster car, I think.
Right. Well, I do have those. It was a '57 Chevy Bel Air, what he drove for the most of season 1, and then I guess they started doing better because he upgraded to a '85 Camaro Z28. Had T-tops, it's red, with the silver. Crap. Anyway, the molding at the bottom of the car. It's the name's actually skipping my mind right now. Anyway, but then he later had a 1968 Camaro Rally Sport convertible.
Huh. What's weird is that they had these nice vehicles. Well, of course, Rick kept truck, I think, the entire series. But They were
you
always
can't get rid of that. It's iconic.
They were always talking about being broke. At least for the first few seasons, they were perpetually broke. So you would think they'd be riding around like a Gremlin, or a Festiva or something like that, or at best maybe El Camino. But they had pretty decent vehicles. But AJ was pretty slick. He was pretty fly.
You needed a tank car. Anyway.
All right, so our next show is going to be Matt Houston, and here we go with the theme song. Okay, that is hideous crap. I should have checked first. Hold on, let me try another. That was warped. Here we go. Okay, that's a really crazy long. Let's stop there. Dude, that thing's like, it sounds like it goes on forever. Here's the weird thing is the theme song to Matt Houston is very similar to the first season of Magnum P.I. It's like one of those Dynasty, Dallas, it's one of those things like Aaron Spelling, this is one of his shows. He specialized in these big, elaborate openings. They weren't really awesome. They're just kind of, feel the song. All right, Matt Houston. For years, this is kind of considered to be a Magnum P.I. clone, which it is not in any way. That is such a boneheaded statement because they just... Okay, so he looks like... He's like the rich version. If somehow Magnum P.I. inherited Robin Masters' money, he would be Matt Houston. But that's it. I mean, they just kind of look alike. That's it. There's nothing like. They're detectives, and they have mustaches. Woo!
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so I bring this up just because it's he had so much money. He had money like he pooped money. Let's just say this: Matt Houston had an insane amount of money, and so he had tons of really great cars. Other than that, I have to say it's one of those shows where you really don't have to continuously watch it. It's kind of generic.
Well, I didn't know what to make. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. It's right up there with all the other shows around. I can't believe it lasted as long as it did, to be honest. But definitely good fun.
Yeah, it's fluff. It's Aaron Spelling's shows they're bright. They're very bright. I don't know if he just opened the aperture or what they did. You ever notice his shows are very welcoming. It's lots of colors, lots of flash.
Right.
Whereas Simon & Simon and Magnum P.I. had kind of a character in the way that they were filmed. All of his shows kind of look the same. I mean, even Magnum P.I., which is like this gritty cop show, well, at the time it seemed gritty. It seems kind of silly now. But they all kind of look the same style of editing. I think it was just to please everybody. This is probably like one of those PG glam shows that the whole family could watch. Where I think you had to be a little more sophisticated to watch the other two. I feel like I'm insulting Matt Houston fans. I don't. How do I say this without sounding like a jerk? But it was just kind of fluffy. The show was one of those where it was procedural. Like the episodes rarely ever flowed into the next. It didn't develop any of the characters at all.
Right. No. It was definitely a week by week thing.
All right. So Matt Houston was one of those oil guys from Texas who made a ton of money. And he gets bored, so he flies to Los Angeles. He just flies to Los Angeles like on a regular basis. And there he decides, I'm going to solve mysteries just for my own fun. And it's usually for the rich and famous, which is also hard to connect with. You're like, oh, God, you have a lot of money. I'm not sure I feel a whole lot of sympathy for you. But it's usually like murder mysteries, stuff like that. You know, can you find my daughter? She's been kidnapped by a human trafficker. You know, nothing like that. Where Magnum P.I. got kind of close to that kind of dark stuff.
Right. I couldn't remember. It took me forever to place where I'd seen this guy before.
Oh yeah, Lee Horsley.
I finally pointed it earlier today. You ever watch a show called Nero Wolf? Or listen to the old radio show?
Well, I saw the one with Timothy Hutton, but I know which one you're talking about. The guy from Jake and the Fat Man, right?
Yeah. Like, it's awesome how things change along here. One of my favorite shows when I was driving a truck, I found that listening to music just put me to sleep, and that's a really bad idea with driving a semi.
Yeah, I don't imagine so.
So I started listening to old-time radio, and Nero Wolf came on. And I believe it was like, if I can remember who did it then, but honestly, I don't know if it's the same guy or not. But the guy is William Conrad.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Plays him in this, a.k.a. Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. So that that was another one I really loved listening to, but I remember that I'd actually seen this show with Lee Horsley in it, and William Conrad as well, and I really loved it. But I think it was pretty short-lived.
Yeah, I think it was on for maybe a season and a half.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my off.
No, it's okay. It's about Lee Horsley. Mine was Sword and the Sorcerer. It was a very campy, outrageous. You watch it now and you're like, wow, that's insane. Why does he have a sword that shoots blades? Did they have CO2 cartridges back in the day? No, I had seen Sword and the Sorcerer, so I think I saw it like on HBO when I was a kid or something. I shouldn't have been watching it because that's an R-rated movie. But I had seen that, and that's the first time I saw him. And then I saw he was in a Western called Guns of Paradise, a.k.a. Paradise, which I caught here and there, but I was more of a Young Riders kind of guy. I did not know what Matt Houston was until about 6 or 7 years ago. I had a bad habit of collecting shows that were not on DVD. By odd means. Collector's means.
We won't go in further detail.
Yeah, so the only thing I ever remember, there's a magazine when we were kids. I don't know if you'll remember this, but you remember when Scholastic would come around like a couple times a year and they have like a little book fair? You know, they had like a room they'd put a bunch of stuff in, and I saw a magazine called Bananas. And I was like, that looks like Mad Magazine. I love Mad Magazine. So I picked up Bananas, and it's kind of like the same way or whatever. And they had a joke about whenever Magnum P.I. would walk out a door, Matt Houston would walk back in because he's the same guy. And I was like, what the hell is Matt Houston? That's it. That's my only connection until I found the DVDs a year later. I watched the entire series. I burned through it pretty fast because some of the episodes were like, oh my God, get through this. But I do enjoy Season 3. They tried to save the show by adding Buddy Epson, who I think plays his uncle, who is... Yeah, and he was great. He's basically Barnaby Jones. He's really good at solving mysteries. He's a talker, whereas Matt would do more of the action-oriented stuff. They had a great chemistry, and I kind of wish the show had continued in that vein. If it was going to go to a season 4, if it had been like an oddball buddy comedy kind of thing.
Man, I wish I would watched that season.
Yeah, it's only the first season's out. Second and third season. Good luck with that one.
Oh. Dang it.
All right, so what are some of the vehicles that Matt rode?
Some of the vehicles, unfortunately, I only focused on one.
Well, he had so many, it was ridiculous.
It definitely sticks out compared to most of the other ones. This was okay, get this. It looks like a 1920s, early 30s Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, that one, yeah, it's a beautiful vehicle. Yeah.
SSK Roadster. This thing looks like it's out of the 20s, right?
Right.
Wrong. It was made in 1982.
What?
Yes. Now, this has got to be one of the best names for a car ever. The Excalibur. 1982 Excalibur Phaeton.
That is awesome.
It was Model 4 that he drove. neoclassic in design, um, and it went for like 20 years. I think they made these cars or something like that. Now there's a company out there that's still trying to keep them alive by making parts for it.
Uh-huh.
If you want more information on that, it's ExcaliburClassics.com. Now this lady bought rights or whatever. I'm not sure what she did exactly, but the company was going under. The company that had bought it for like the second or third time was totally forgetting about the neoclassic, what made it popular, the Excalibur, the Phaeton, what it made it, that company, what it was, what it started off with. So she's seeing this happening and everything, and as they were ready to just chuck it, she took up the banner, I guess, and is trying to preserve it. And I think that's awesome. So to this day, she's doing that. So it's still not dead, which is awesome. And she's actually in the works of trying to think about making new ones.
Oh, good, yeah. Then when I get rich, I'll buy one. Haha.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And when I get rich, I'll solve mysteries. Because I'm bored.
The cool thing about this car, yeah, definitely. That was the one reason why it went under, because they kept coming out with new models, and it was get more and more expensive to make them. Now, what I liked about this car, what stuck out to me, is the tie to Indiana.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah. This, there was a designer back in the, 30s? Something like that. He started designing. His name's Brooks Stevens. He was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he started working for, at some point, Studebaker. He's designed many things, from the Steam-O-Matic, which is a steam iron from the 30s. He was designing tractors for Alice Chalmers. He designed the Miller High Life logo, the little funky-looking, anyway.
Yeah.
Clothes dryer, a motorcycle for Harley Davidson, a runabout boat made in 56. But I think the most iconic thing he designed was, drum roll please, and I think he'll be most known for this, the Wienermobile.
No! Who doesn't love that? It's so awesome.
58, yes. And who doesn't love that car? I'll tell you what.
Who doesn't love a big wiener?
That's right. Wait a minute. Different show. Anyway, well, he went on to work for various different automakers and eventually Studebaker. And it was for that last company that he designed the Excalibur. He designed it for them to kind of give them something different to help try and save the name. But it was a little bit too little too late. And when the company started to go under, he and his sons took over the car. And that was in like 1964. And they started producing them themselves.
Mm-hmm.
When it first came out, it was powered by a 290 horsepower Studebaker V8. It's the same engine that's found in the iconic Avante. Who didn't want? Well, I don't know.
That was a weird. Screw it. I'm done.
The Avante. Okay, somebody from the 70s might, floating a little high back in the 60s, maybe wanted an Avante. But anyway, moving on.
All right. So the last thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
It ended up moving on because Studebaker went under. They stopped production on that engine, and they ended up putting a 300 horsepower Chevy V8 in there, and that was what they were putting in the Corvettes at the time. The car could do. It's an old classic roadster-looking vehicle with no top that could do 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. That's a little scary.
Yeah. Wow.
But the thing is, it's a modern car, so it may look old, but it's not. Anyway, sorry. Really love that car.
No, it's fine. It's cool. I like it. Wait. What? Can I hear myself?
Can you hear yourself?
I can hear myself. This is weird.
Like I said, if you guys are interested in checking out more about this car, check out ExcaliburClassics.com. It's definitely worth it if you're into anything unique.
All right, so my last words on this. I want to say Lawrence Gordon created Matt Houston. He only ever created one other TV show. He produced like 1,000 movies. The Warriors, Streets of Fire.
Really?
Yeah, Streets of Fire, Brewster's Million. Him and Joel Silver, Walter Hill, they worked closely together for a while. Hooper, of course, we know that movie, the stunt movie with Burt Reynolds. The Driver, Rolling Thunder, Hard Times. The Predator, Die Hard, Leviathan, Canine, just tons of action movies. The Rocketeer.
Awesome.
But he only ever created one other TV show, and I thought it was kind of funny. It's a TV show called The Renegades with Patrick Swayze. It was one of the very first things that he ever did.
Yes.
And have you seen it?
I think I have, yes.
It's like someone took the Mod Squad meets the Warriors meets the Outsiders, and it only lasted like 6 or 7 episodes, but every single episode is highly entertaining, mostly because of the camp value and nostalgia. But luckily, his second series, it's just weird that he only created 2 TV series and didn't just focus solely on producing. Maybe it's just easier.
You got to give me the Renegades was a television series?
Yeah, it's basically like if you took the Warriors and made them like 21 Jump Street, where they're kind of undercover.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Oh,
like 21 Jump Street.
Are you thinking Renegades with Kiefer Sutherland?
What?
Are you thinking Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips movie?
No, that was, no, that's not what I was thinking of. No,
Oh,
I've
okay.
actually seen TV show, because I remember Patrick Swayze being in it, but I don't remember seeing a lot of it. I don't think I watched it regularly, because it's just vaguely on the back of my brain there, but anyway, moving on.
For the most part, Lawrence Gordon is retired, but I think he's trying to go out with a bang. He's trying to get Hellboy 3 made before he retires, like completely retires.
That'd be awesome.
All right, everybody, that is it for us at Full Throttle TV. Be excellent to each other. That's what I thought. I don't know. It's the first thing that popped in my brain.
There you go.
All right, and
I'm lacking the Bill and Ted.
Yeah. I was like, whenever you got that reference, I was like, please tell me you remember that.
I do remember it, at least.
What are we thinking before we go? What do you want to talk about next episode?
I don't know.
I think it's time for us to do the A-Team.
Yes.
Yeah, the A-Team. Maybe throw in a couple other shows. We finally found Highwayman. We talked about this like 4 episodes ago. I found episodes of the Highwayman, so we can discuss this with A-Team. Same creator, same idea. I think we're good.
That sounds good to me.
All right, everybody. Any last words, Ron? Why do I keep saying that? It's like I'm going to kill my co-host. What are your last words?
Don't shoot. I just told him don't shoot. Sorry.
All right. Good night, everybody.